Hey there, future platoon leader. Big congrats on the new position. You're about to have some serious responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah, congratulations.
That means ADP 390, the Army's Tactical Operations Bible, will be your new best friend.
Oh, yeah.
But let's be real, it's a dense read.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
That's why we're doing this deep dive to break down the essentials so you're not drowning in acronyms on your first day in the field.
Yeah, you got to make sure that you can actually use it in the field, right?
Exactly.
Nobody wants to be stuck in the field with that giant book trying to page through it while rounds are coming.
Nobody's got time for that.
So think of this deep dive as a combat multiplier for your leadership skills.
I like it.
We'll connect the dots between theory and practice, making sure you're not just carrying the manual, but actually using it to make smart decisions under pressure.
Music to any new lieutenant's ears.
Mm.
All right, ADP 390 really emphasizes this idea of joint interdependence, which, okay, on the surface seems kind of obvious, right? Like, yeah, the Army's all about teamwork. But how does this translate to your day-to-day as a platoon leader?
Yeah.
You're going to be laser-focused on your platoon's objectives.
Absolutely. But here's the kicker. Even when you're knee-deep in a mission, your platoon is never operating in a vacuum.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You're the point man on patrol, but you've got your squad backing you up, drones feeding you intel, maybe even artillery support on speed dial if things get hairy.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding how those joint capabilities, air support, artillery, intelligence, logistics, the whole shebang can be leveraged, is what takes a good platoon leader to a great one.
So it's like you're conducting this tactical symphony, and knowing how to utilize those joint assets is what makes it a masterpiece instead of, well, a cacophony of chaos.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And just like a symphony needs a conductor, effective joint operations hinge on clear, concise communication.
Makes sense.
You need to know how to articulate your needs to those higher echelons, how to coordinate with adjacent units, and how to make sure everyone on your team is on the same sheet of music, so to speak.
Right, because the last thing you want is a friendly fire incident because someone missed a beat.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
Definitely not.
That's not good.
Okay, so joint interdependence, it's about seeing the bigger picture, knowing how your platoon fits into the larger fight. But let's zoom back in on the platoon leader's immediate world for a second.
Okay.
ADP 390 talks about these things called operational variables and mission variables. They're presented as these long acronyms, PASIPTT and METTC, which honestly can feel like you've stumbled into a military alphabet soup.
Yeah, you're not wrong about the alphabet soup. It can definitely seem overwhelming at first glance.
Absolutely.
But think of these variables as intel reports on the battlefield of decision-making.
I like that.
They give you a framework for analyzing the context of your mission, which is crucial for making the right call when the pressure is on.
Context is key. So break it down for us. What are these variables and why should a platoon leader care about them?
Okay, so PMECIPT stands for political, military, economic, social, information, infrastructure, physical environment, and time.
Oh, wow. It might seem like a mouthful,
It is.
but each of those factors directly impacts your operational environment.
Okay, that's a mouthful for sure, but give us an example.
Sure.
How do these actually play out at the platoon level?
Let's say you're on patrol in a foreign country. The political climate is tense. So the rules of engagement, ROE, dictated by those at the top of the PMSIPT food chain are going to be more restrictive.
Okay.
You might have to think twice about returning fire because the potential for civilian casualties or escalating the situation is high.
Right.
That's the political variable at play.
Okay.
Or on a more tactical level, the local infrastructure, think roads, bridges, communication lines, is going to dictate how your platoon can best maneuver.
Makes sense.
That's infrastructure playing a part. Each letter gives you another lens through which to assess the situation.
So PMECIPT is like having a pre-mission checklist, but instead of checking your gear, you're checking the pulse of your operational environment. You got it. Now, METTC is more focused on the nitty-gritty of the mission itself. Mission, enemy, terrain and weather, troops and support available, time available, and civil considerations. This one's all about making tactical decisions based on the objective, the enemy you're facing, the lay of the land, basically, the playing field of the engagement.
Okay, so it's like PMPT sets the stage and METTC is about how you're going to play your part in that specific act of the play.
Exactly. And just like a good actor, a good platoon leader needs to be aware of both the grand narrative and their character's role in that story.
Right. All right, so we've got the big picture with joint interdependence and the contextual awareness of PMPT and MET-TC. Let's dive into how this translates to actually fighting a battle.
Okay.
ADP 390 outlines 6 warfighting functions: command and control, movement and maneuver, intelligence, fires, sustainment, and protection. Now, I get how those apply to a massive operation,
Right.
but we're talking platoons here, the smallest tactical unit in the Army.
Yeah.
How do these functions actually play out at that level?
That's where it gets really interesting. It's about understanding that even at the fire team level, those 6 functions are always at play, even in their most basic form. Think of it like this. Those warfighting functions are like the systems of the human body.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Take command and control, or C2, for example.
Okay.
For fire team, effective communication is their C2.
Okay.
The team leader making sure everyone knows their role, where to move, what targets to engage. That's C2 in action right there in the thick of it.
So it's about understanding those big picture functions and then being able to scale them down to the platoon level, recognizing that each function has a role even in the smallest unit, like the circulatory system ensuring blood flow to every extremity, even the pinky finger.
Exactly. And just like a well-oiled machine or a healthy body, every part needs to be working in sync, especially in the heat of battle, which leads us to...
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork: joint interdependence, operational variables, warfighting functions. It's all starting to make sense.
She's starting to come together.
But ADP 390 also gets into some pretty hardcore tactical concepts.
Right.
One that caught my eye was the distinction between areas of influence, areas of interest, and areas of operations. Can you break those down for us? Why are these distinctions so important for a new platoon leader to grasp?
You got it. Think of it like this. You're the platoon leader, you're on a mission, and you've got your map in front of you.
Got it.
Your area of operations, or AO, is your immediate stomping ground. It's where your platoon has the green light to maneuver and engage
Okay.
your area of responsibility.
So my AO is where I'm the tactical quarterback calling the plays. Got it.
Exactly. Now imagine drawing a slightly larger circle around your AO. That's your area of influence. It's where you can impact the fight without physically being there. Your weapon systems have a certain range, your comm systems have a certain reach. That's your influence extending beyond your immediate location.
Okay, so I might not be able to park a tank on every street corner, but I can still make my presence known, keep the enemy's heads down, even if my boots aren't on that particular piece of ground.
Exactly. Now zoom out even further, and that's your area of interest.
Okay.
This encompasses everything that could potentially impact your mission,
Oh, wow.
even if it's beyond your direct control.
Okay.
Think enemy activity beyond your immediate vicinity, refugee movements, key infrastructure, even the political climate in the region. It's all part of that bigger picture.
So it's like having situational awareness on steroids. You're not just focused on the firefight in front of you. You're thinking about how events miles away could change the game.
You've got it. As a platoon leader, you're responsible for understanding how those areas connect and influence each other. It's about anticipating threats, seizing opportunities, and making sure your platoon is never caught flat-footed.
Got it. So it's about understanding the battle space in its entirety, not just your little corner of it. Now, speaking of the big picture, ADP 390 talks about this concept called combined arms. What's that all about?
Combined arms is all about synergy,
Got it.
bringing together different elements of the military to create a force greater than the sum of its parts.
I like it.
Think tanks and infantry working in tandem, artillery raining down fire support, air assets taking out key targets.
Okay, so it's about using all the tools in the military toolbox. But isn't that more of a battalion or brigade level thing? How does a platoon leader, working with a relatively small unit, actually make use of combined arms?
You're right. Coordinating those large-scale combined arms maneuvers usually falls on higher command.
Right.
But as a platoon leader, you're the one integrating your platoon into that larger symphony of destruction.
Okay.
You need to know what support you have available, whether it's a JTAC calling in airstrikes or a mortar platoon providing indirect fire, and how to best utilize those assets to achieve your objectives.
So if my platoon is tasked with taking out an enemy position on a hilltop, I need to be thinking about how I can integrate artillery fire to soften up the target before my guys make their move.
Now you're getting it. And it's not just about knowing what you can request. It's about timing those requests effectively, communicating clearly with those supporting elements, and making sure everyone is on the same page.
Right, because a mistimed artillery strike or a friendly fire incident isn't exactly going to win you any friends, or battles for that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so combined arms, it's about teamwork, even if that team includes tanks, artillery, and fighter jets. Now, ADP 390 is full of these tactical terms like engagement area, forms of contact, and mutual support. Let's break those down. What are the key things a platoon leader needs to know about these concepts?
Let's start with engagement area. Simply put, it's the geographical area where you plan to take on the enemy.
Okay,
It's not just about stumbling into a firefight.
right.
It's about analyzing the terrain, identifying advantageous positions, and maneuvering your forces so you're fighting on your terms.
Okay, so like picking the right arena for a gladiatorial contest, you want to make sure the odds are in your favor.
Exactly. Now, forms of contact, this refers to how you initially engage the enemy.
Okay.
ADP 390 lists 8 different forms,
Wow, okay.
like visual contact, direct fire, indirect fire, even electronic warfare.
Oh,
As a platoon leader, you need to be adaptable and ready to react effectively to any type of contact.
flexibility is key. One minute you're playing hide and seek in a forest, the next you're facing off in an urban firefight. What about mutual support? That sounds pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
You're right, it's more nuanced than it might seem. At its core, mutual support is about how platoons protect each other on the battlefield. It's about positioning units in a way that allows them to provide covering fire, prevent flanking maneuvers, and reinforce each other if one platoon comes under heavy attack.
So it's like a buddy system on steroids.
Yeah.
You're watching out for each other, making sure no one gets overwhelmed by the enemy.
Exactly. And 2 key concepts tied to mutual support are supporting distance and supporting range. Supporting distance refers to how far apart units can be while still being able to physically support each other. Supporting range, on the other hand, is about how far apart units can be while still providing effective fire support.
So knowing those distances helps me decide how close I need to keep my platoons to maintain that mutual support network, both in terms of maneuver and firepower.
Exactly. You're catching on. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about one of the most fundamental aspects of tactical operations maneuver.
All right, maneuver. ADP 390 describes it as more than just movement. It's about gaining an advantage over the enemy. So help us wrap our heads around that. How is maneuver more than just moving from point A to point B?
Think of it this way. If movement is like walking down a street, maneuver is like parkour. It's about using your surroundings, your agility, and your understanding of the terrain to move with speed and purpose,
Well,
always staying one step ahead of your opponent.
okay, I like that analogy. So it's not just about getting to the objective. It's about getting there in a way that maximizes your advantage and minimizes your vulnerability.
Exactly. ADP 390 lays out 5 forms of maneuver: envelopment, frontal assault, infiltration, penetration, and turning movement. You'll dive deeper into these in your later training, but even at the platoon level, understanding these concepts will make you a more effective leader.
So even if I'm not planning a battalion-sized envelopment as a platoon leader, knowing how that works gives me an edge when I'm coordinating with other units or even just maneuvering my platoon within a larger operation.
Absolutely. Imagine you're on patrol and your platoon encounters enemy resistance in a village. Instead of launching a risky frontal assault, you might use a turning movement, maneuvering your forces to cut off the enemy's escape route, forcing them to either surrender or fight on your terms.
Okay, so it's like using maneuver to set the chessboard in your favor, even if you're only moving a few pawns at a time.
Precisely. Now, speaking of chessboards and unpredictable opponents, let's talk about a scenario that every platoon leader should be prepared for: the meeting engagement.
Ah, yes, the meeting engagement, as in, surprise, we're in a firefight. Not exactly how you want to start your day, right?
No.
But seriously, why are these encounters so common? And what's the key to not just surviving, but succeeding in a meeting engagement?
Meeting engagements happen because, well, the enemy rarely gives you their battle plans in advance.
Right.
You're out on patrol, you're moving to a new objective, and suddenly, bam, you make unexpected contact.
Surprise,
Yeah.
said no lieutenant ever.
Exactly. And that element of surprise is what makes meeting engagements so challenging. The key is to react quickly and decisively. You don't have time to pull out your map and have a brainstorming session.
So it's all about that rapid decision-making. I bet ADP 390 has a lot to say about that.
It does. But one of the most important things you can do to prepare for those high-pressure situations is to drill your soldiers on their battle drills until they're second nature.
Muscle memory got it. The more they practice, the faster they react, which can make all the difference when the bullets start flying. Okay, so we've covered joint interdependence, operational variables, warfighting functions, maneuver, meeting engagements. It's a lot to take in. Anything else ADP 390 throws at us, or have we reached the final boss level of this deep dive?
We've covered a lot of tactical ground, but before we wrap up, we need to zoom out to the organizational structure of the Army, specifically echelons of command.
Okay, echelons of command. We're talking about the chain of command, right?
Yeah.
From the grunt on the ground all the way up to the five-star general calling the shots from some far-off command center.
You got it. But for a brand new platoon leader, this isn't just about knowing who to salute. It's about understanding how your platoon, the smallest tactical unit, fits into the larger puzzle of Army operations.
So it's like seeing your role in the grand scheme of things, understanding how your decisions affect and are affected by those above and below you in the chain of command.
Exactly. Imagine this. Your platoon is tasked with securing a bridge as part of a larger battalion operation. Knowing that a company-sized element is depending on you to secure their flank, that the battalion's overall objective hinges on that bridge being secured, that awareness gives your mission even greater weight.
Right. It's not just about following orders. It's about understanding the why behind those orders, seeing how your platoon's actions contribute to the bigger picture.
Precisely. Now, before we wrap up our deep dive into ADP 390, there are a few more platoon-level essentials we need to touch on, things like local security, rules of engagement, and tactical mobility.
Let's do it. Starting with local security, that sounds pretty self-explanatory, right? You secure your immediate area. But I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye.
You're right. Local security isn't just about setting up a perimeter and calling it a day. It's about proactively creating a safe environment for your soldiers. It's about establishing patrols, setting up early warning systems, and constantly being aware of your surroundings even when you're not actively engaged in combat.
Because complacency can get you killed.
Exactly. Now, rules of engagement, or ROE, this one's absolutely crucial. As a platoon leader, you're operating in a complex world where the lines between combatant and civilian can be blurred.
The last thing you want is an international incident because someone misunderstood the rules.
Precisely, ROE are there to provide clear guidelines for when and how to use force. As a platoon leader, you're not only responsible for knowing the ROE inside and out, but also for ensuring your soldiers understand and follow them.
No excuses.
None whatsoever. Finally, let's talk about tactical mobility.
So more than just knowing how to read a map and use a compass.
Right. Tactical mobility is about analyzing the terrain, understanding the enemy's capabilities, and choosing the best routes and formations to achieve your objective quickly and safely. It's about maximizing your platoon's speed and agility while minimizing your vulnerability.
So it's like playing a game of high-stakes chess on a constantly changing board. Only the squares are hills, forests, and buildings, and the pieces are your soldiers.
Exactly. And just like in chess, every move you make has consequences. Understanding tactical mobility is about making the right moves at the right time, always staying one step ahead of your opponent.
So we've covered a ton of ground today, from the strategic level all the way down to the nitty-gritty of leading a platoon in combat. Hopefully our future platoon leader out there is feeling a little more prepared for the challenges ahead.
We've only scratched the surface, but hopefully this deep dive has provided a solid foundation for understanding ADP 390 and its practical applications on the battlefield.
Absolutely. Remember, ADP 390 is your field manual for success as a leader. Master these concepts, and you'll be well on your way to becoming a truly effective platoon leader.
And don't forget, leadership goes beyond tactics and manuals. Get to know your soldiers, build trust, listen to their input, and never stop learning. Your ability to inspire and motivate your troops will ultimately be the decisive factor in the field.
Words of wisdom to take to heart. To our listener out there, congrats again on the new position. You've got this. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.